The next item of business is consideration of Business Motion 4530 in the name of Joe Fitzpatrick on behalf of the Parliamentary Bureau, setting out a revision to today's business programme. I would ask any member who wishes to speak against the motion to press the request to speak button now, and I call on Joe Fitzpatrick to move motion number 4530.
Formally moved.
No member has asked to speak against the motion, therefore I will now put the question to the Chamber. The question is that motion number 4530 in the name of Joe Fitzpatrick be agreed to. Are we all agreed? The motion is therefore agreed to. We now move to topical questions. Question number 1, Neil Findlay.
To ask the Scottish Government what support it will give to the West Lothian area following the announcement of the closure of the Halls meat processing plant.
Cabinet Secretary John Swinney.
Presiding Officer, we are committed to working with West Lothian Council and other task force partners to explore all options for a recovery plan following the disappointing news of the closure of Halls of Broxburn. A further meeting will be held on the 24th of October to discuss the plan in more detail and identify those interventions that would provide the greatest impact ahead of a task force meeting on the 30th of October.
Neil Findlay.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for his answer and for his efforts on Halls. I understand that a decade ago, following the Motorola closure, the then Scottish Executive put in something around £10 million to West Lothian to support the area through the trauma of that closure. Given the immense challenge and the very localised nature of the job losses at Halls, can the Cabinet Secretary advise what scale of support is likely to be offered to help the county cope with this disaster?
Cabinet Secretary.
What I would say to Mr Findlay at the outset is to reinforce what I've said to Councillor John McGuinty, the leader of West Lothian Council, that the Government will work in a partnership way with the local authority and with other partners to ensure that we tackle the economic issues and consequences that will clearly arise as a result of the decision about Halls of Broxburn. At this stage in the proceedings, I am unable to put a cash figure on that, but what I would want to assure Mr Findlay about is that the suggestions that have been made by West Lothian Council, developed with my officials, some of the points that Mr Findlay has raised in his correspondence to me, the points raised also by my colleagues Fiona Hislop and Angela Constance at local level, will be very much considered as part of the recovery plan. We do acknowledge the significance of the economic impact and the localised nature of the economic impact, and that will essentially structure the approach that we take to designing a recovery plan.
Neil Findlay.
Thanks very much for that. Could I just ask very simply that the Cabinet Secretary keeps regional list members informed of what's going on also?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, can I say that throughout the whole dealing with the issue in Halls of Broxburn, there has been a tremendous amount of cooperation across the political spectrum and across public bodies and elected bodies in the West Lothian area. I have greatly appreciated the involvement of members of Mr Findlay's party in the task force, as well as my own colleagues, and I can assure him that I will keep Parliament up to date and regional members and relevant constituency members up to date with the steps that we take, and that if there are any suggestions that members have as to what steps the Government should take, I would want to make clear in Parliament today the Government's willingness to hear those suggestions and to act upon them.
Check Brodie.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Will the Scottish Government seek the release from HMRC of similar data for Vion's UK operation on a like-for-like basis? On its consolidated figures for 2011, Vion International had an operating income of €9.5 billion, up 7% on the year before. It paid dividends of €327 million, up 3%. Its wage bill in that period grew only 0.02%. In 2011, Vion's nominal tax rate, together with the effect of different foreign taxes, was 26.9%. Their effective tax rate was a clawback of 1.7%.
Cabinet Secretary.
I think what I'd say to Mr Brodie is that the Government has, through the task force, has worked very closely with Vion to ensure that we had access to a very comprehensive range of financial information to enable us to determine some of the underlying difficulties and issues that were being confronted by Halls of Broxburn. That financial information has been made available to the accountants that I commissioned to assess the financial performance and have advised the task force throughout. I think the information that the task force has been provided with has given a pretty comprehensive understanding of the financial issues that have been had to be addressed in Halls of Broxburn, and also given us a sense of where some of the opportunities would exist to create a sustainable business operation, and that will remain the focus of the government's activities, which, combined with our dialogue with potential interested parties in components of the operations of Vion, we will continue to take forward to secure the best outcome we can for the people of West Lothian.
Question number 2, Maureen Watt.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what steps it is taking to expedite the building of the Aberdeen Western Peripheral Route following the Supreme Court's final rejection of the legal protests which have been delaying the project.
Minister Keith Brown.
Presiding Officer, we are already expediting the delivery of this vital project for the North East. We ensured as much preparatory work as possible was progressed during the legal challenges so that we were in a position to move immediately following the UK Supreme Court judgment last week. The prior information notice signalling the start of procurement was published only 2 days after the judgment on the 19th of October this year. Further works will begin next month with drilling rigs on site to carry out vital ground investigations. Over the course of the next year, there will be more advanced works to clear the site ahead of the main works, which are expected to get underway in 2014 and be completed by the spring of 2018.
Maureen Watt.
I thank the Minister for that answer. The Minister has already agreed that there should be community benefit clauses in the contracts guaranteeing opportunities for apprentices, the long-term unemployed, and I hope that there will be work with the universities to give trainee civil engineers and surveyors practical experience. But will he also work with the Cabinet Secretary for Rural Affairs and Environment to urge farmers to use the recycled stones lying at the side of their fields in the construction process so that we can regain some agricultural land which is being lost at a phenomenal rate to house building?
Minister.
Presiding Officer, I've given the assurance to the member that we will raise this issue with the procurement team for this project. Of course, any development which can ensure that materials don't have to be transported helps the environment, and also that we don't have to buy further materials but instead can use them locally would be good for the project. So I've undertaken to the member to take this up with officials and to see what possibly we can take forward. But I will give her the commitment. I will work very closely with the Cabinet Secretary for Rural Affairs to see what we can do in this area.
Maureen Watt.
Again, I thank the Minister for that answer. Can he also give us any idea of what savings will be made combining the AWPR project with the Balmedy-Tipperty project?
Minister.
First of all, to say that we were sure of the savings that we would have made had we been able to proceed with this project when we wanted to some years ago, but the work on the cost for the project and therefore the savings that will be arrived at by bundling these two projects together is being worked on currently by officials, and I intend to produce that information for the Parliament as soon as possible.
I have many members who want to ask a supplementary, so could I urge you to be as brief as possible? Richard Baker.
Thank you. The Minister has indicated the AWPR will be complete in 2018. What impact will this have on improvements at the Huddigan roundabout, which Ministers have linked to completion of the work on the AWPR? Can he give a completion date for this linked project?
Minister.
I should say that it's not just ministers who have linked this programme. The Aberdeen City Council have also said that the AWPR and the Third Dawn crossing require to be in place in order to meet the transport planning objectives for the Hodigan roundabout. But it's also worth saying we have already committed £3 million towards the design work for the Hodigan roundabout. What we have to do now is get on with the AWPR. It would be interesting to know from Richard Baker, if it's possible, whether he intends to continue supporting this project or, like his colleague Elaine Murray, start to cast into doubt the project, the Forth Road crossing, which she now says she's had second thoughts about. We really should have continuity in this from the Labour Party.
Brian Adam.
I very much welcome the decision of the courts in recent weeks. And can the Minister confirm that the Huddigan redevelopment and the Third Dawn crossing work will be included in the Aberdeen Western Peripheral Route contract? And can you give us some idea when these individual elements of what is a package are likely to happen.
Minister.
Yeah, I think the last point that Brian Adam made was about the impacts of the projects, and it's worth saying that over the 30 years this will support 14,000 jobs in the north east of Scotland, as well as creating £6.3 billion of additional income, so they will have a massive impact. As I've said already in relation to the Horrigan roundabout, it's always been our position that the Balmedy to Tipperty and the AWPR project should proceed, first of all, before we can accrue the benefits from the Horrigan roundabout, and we obviously await legal proceedings in relation to the Third Don crossing. But I can assure the member that we will crack on with this project as soon as we possibly can, and intend to see the benefits accrue to the North East as soon as we possibly can.
Alec Johnson.
Given that the Minister has already made it clear that other road development projects in the North East will be included as part of the AWPR development, has he given any further consideration to the option to include the junction with the A90 and the A937 at Lawrence Kirk as part of the AWPR contract?
Minister.
I have to say there is no update to provide in relation to Alec Johnson's question. Since the last time he asked me that point, we don't intend to include it with the bundle for the AWPR.
Kevin Stewart.
Presiding Officer, could the Minister outline any discussions he has had with Aberdeen City Council regarding their responsibilities for the construction of the Third Don crossing, which would complete the holy trinity of vital roads projects to keep Aberdeen moving?
Minister.
The member will be aware of the legal constraints in relation to discussions on that. Can I say there have been discussions between officials at this stage? We very much hope that Aberdeen City Council will share our desire to progress with this as soon as possible, because we can then see the whole suite of transport solutions for the North East and for Aberdeen itself. So we will continue to work with Aberdeen City Council, who we have developed a very constructive relationship with in relation to the AWPR itself, in terms of how that is paid for and progressed, and we hope to continue that cooperation with the Council on other projects.
Lewis MacDonald.
Can the Minister confirm that potential private finance partners remain interested in the AWPR under the non-profit distributing model taken forward by the Government? And can he tell us, in the event that no competitive bids are received, what is the Government's plan B for financing this vital project?
Minister.
I can confirm that I am aware there's a very healthy interest in the market for this project, as you would expect. We're obviously being asked to make as many projects proceed as possible, given the constraints of the resources which we face. So I do not expect to have a lack of competition for this contract. In fact, the opposite seems to me to be the case. We will have the same level of interest, a huge level of interest that we had in relation, for example, to the M8, another MPD project. So we are very confident in terms of the interest that will be in this project.
Alison McInnes.
The commitment made many years ago was that the two councils would each fund 9.5% of the cost of the AWPR, minus the Fastlink costs. Now you've rolled in the Balmedy Tipperty, there's talk of rolling in the Third Don crossing. How will it be possible to identify the discrete costs of the AWPR if the contract is let in this way? And how can local taxpayers be sure that they're not being asked to pick up some of the tab for the other projects? There does need to be absolute transparency and clarity about this. What mechanism does the Minister propose to use, and has he discussed that with the local councils?
Minister.
The mechanism will be one of dialogue. We're talking to the two councils, and it's not beyond the wit of the officials involved or the politicians involved to make sure that we have the right solution for this. So far, discussions have been very productive, and I'm very confident we'll get an agreeable solution to this issue.
Patrick Harvey.
Thank you. If the Minister is concerned about inconsistency from the other side of the chamber, perhaps he'll welcome consistency from the Green Party on this issue. Can I ask him how we're supposed to take remotely seriously any assessment of the costs and benefits of this project when we're still working on an estimate of the cost from nearly a decade ago? If he's going to come forward with a revised cost, can he give a clear commitment that he will specify the portion of the revised cost which is about the AWPR specifically and not about the other projects?
Minister.
Yes, I'm perfectly willing to give the commitment that the figures which I'll produce for Parliament very shortly, which, as you'll understand, are currently being worked on, given we just had the court to decision, will itemise those two projects. It will also be clear at that time that it makes sense to do these two projects together. And can I say there is no doubt about the benefits? I've mentioned 14,000 jobs. That is serious. That's a serious issue. 14,000 jobs in the north east of our country, £6.3 billion of benefit, huge environmental and safety benefits as well. This is a very good project, and I'm delighted we're getting to grips with it now.
I regret